left, and they want to make a deal so badly. They called a little while ago. They want to make a deal so badly. I just don't know if they're worthy of making a deal. I don't know that they're going to honor the deal. That's the problem.
Joining us now to break all of this down is retired Naval Intelligence Commander Dr. Paul Chabot. He also served as White House senior advisor to Presidents Clinton and George W. Bush. And it's always good to see you. Thanks for joining us on this Friday.
Yeah, look, my pleasure. Things are a little bit different this go around. To hear that the ceasefire is over from the president is pretty significant, but also that the U.S. is open to having further discussions, which I believe they are going to have over this weekend. That's pretty critical because we have looked at the ceasefire, you and I and many others, frustrated with it and seeing that rounds were being exchanged between both sides. And so, and you look at the last 24, 48 hours, the U.S. has hit over 90 locations in Iran, over 170 specific targets. And what's really unique about this particular strike is we're not just going after coastal areas around the Strait of Hormuz. We targeted a number of bridges, too, and then a set of train tracks, I believe, which were allegedly used for smuggling weapons from Russia and China back into Iran. So we have definitely stepped up our operations, and it looks like at least there's some more positivity on the U.S. showing some more strength going forward.
Well, we'll need that positivity, as you say, because you have a lot of hope that kind of went down the pipes in the last few days. Certainly in the last few weeks, things have cumulatively gotten less cooperative. But when you hear Iran essentially say, look, we want to operate the Strait of Hormuz, and that's one of our sticking points, that's not on the 14-point plan that was put together this time or years ago.
No, it's not. And the U.S. today in the last few hours has specifically called for Iran to say that they will open the strait and no longer attack ships. But, you know, and Iran negotiators are also openly apologizing in many ways for hitting 3 ships about a few days ago in the Strait of Hormuz. The problem is we can't trust them right now. There are 2 components in Iran, and their actions speak very loudly. What's critical in what happened is Iran struck 3 vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, but not just anywhere. They struck these vessels in the southern part around Oman, which the U.S. controlled and opened up for vessels to use. And so for Iran to say this was an accident is absolutely nonsense. Also remember that after we struck over 170 targets recently, Iran responded with ballistic missiles at a number of our bases in the Middle East. So we can't take their apologies or oops, we didn't mean to do this with any sincerity at this point.
Yeah, if anything, that's just a formality for something to be said at this point. But what really needs to be said is, hey, look, we're willing to sit down and come to a point where we can agree on something. And it seems as though the 2 big things that we were looking to do at the beginning of this conflict was open the Strait of Hormuz, which, by the way, was open before the conflict started, as we know, and then also crack down on some of the uranium enrichment and the nuclear capabilities. Both of those seem miles and miles away on the list of this plan that they put together.
It is. Right now, it is. The game is all about the Strait of Hormuz. Unfortunately, there's been some other nations that have been giving into Iran. They've been paying about $1 to $2 million to transit, so that emboldens Iran. Lloyd's List, which has been around since 1734, it's a international news intelligence reporting, very good sourcing on this, talks about that if others are paying money to transit, then Iran sees an opportunity to put a scare into other vessels. And on top of this, you know, we had the Supreme Leader's funeral, which coincidentally they kicked off on the founding of our nation and our 250th celebration. That was not by accident. And then, of course, the death chants to Trump, which were bold throughout Iran, including huge graphics hanging down from buildings. It was an organized effort by the Iranian regime to send a signal to the U.S.
And, Paul, it wasn't just a matter of those banners that seemed like fanfare around the demise of America. There's also some real, seemingly good intelligence from Israel that they came to the U.S. to say, look, we have sources in Iran that indicate that they're trying to put together a plan to hurt or kill the president. And we should mention no one should be okay with that. That's absolutely awful and terrible. It would send the world in chaos and hurt someone that doesn't need to be hurt in that way. What is the veritability of something like that? Is that something that people should be worried about?
Well, we really should, but I believe that's been Iran's intent for a number of years. We don't know how old that intel is. What we do know is that it just came out more public. Coincidentally, did it line up with the president switching Air Force One planes out of, I believe, Turkey over a few days ago from the newer Air Force One to an older one, which is more of a proven platform, flying in and out of hostility areas. That's a possibility. I think in the weeks, months ahead, we may learn more about this, or just may get buried as another threat from Iran, which quite honestly, we should not be too surprised about at this point.
My last question to you, Dr. Chabot, is about the viability of seeing some hope here, because it seems as though we are not just at square one. We may be a few blocks away from square one here. Where do you see this going? And talk about timelines in your mind.
Yeah, look, from a military perspective, I think a lot of veterans, active duty, were frustrated in the last few weeks, feeling like as if we were getting played by Iran. You've got the two sides saying they want to negotiate, and then you've got the other side, which is completely, anti-Israel, anti-America, throwing ballistic missiles and drones at us. We cannot trust them, and I feel at this point, looking at the Strait of Hormuz, this is going to get much more dangerous for Iran going forward, looking at what we've struck with bridges recently above and beyond just looking at what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. So in many ways, I feel better because I think we are more out in front. We are showing Iran, you hit us, we're going to come at you harder. We're no longer looking at a proportional response. We're going to need to step this up. That's the only thing the Iran regime respects, and that is a much harder punch to the nose, if you will.
All right. Dr. Paul Chabot, we thank you for your perspective and your time here tonight. Thanks.
My pleasure. Thank you.
We're turning to